Hello, I'm Kate Franklin, I'm Chair of Governors, and this is the second webinar that we've broadcast in the last few weeks as a response to the COVID crisis and the need to keep our parents as well informed as the school is about the school's response to COVID and everything that's happening for the rest of term and into next year. Thank you so much for submitting your questions to help us figure out exactly what we need to be telling you and sharing. We think we've addressed all the questions in our response today, but as before, if there's anything that isn't completely clear for you by the end, please just contact the school, and the contact details, as on the website, are also going to be published at the end of this webinar. We're going to be addressing your questions in 6 key areas today. The first will be Ms. Boxall explaining what will happen next year once we're all back at school when any child has symptoms that might be COVID related. The next section will be Mr. Absalom explaining how we're going to close this year, including the questions about meeting teachers and parent-teacher dialogue and what to expect in terms of the return in September. Then Ms. Greenbank will be answering all your questions on distance learning and our plans for next year in relation to that. We're then going to see a recorded message from Miss Rennie, who is the new head teacher who's beginning with us in September. We will then say goodbye, except for the parents who have children starting in reception in September. There were lots of questions from you, so we're going to address a section especially to you at the very end, which everybody else might not want to listen to. So thanks very much for being with us. I would emphasise, if you've not had a chance to listen into the first webinar yet, there's still things on there that are not being covered in this session, so it might still be relevant for you to do that, and it is all available via a link on the website. Over to you.
Thank you. Before I start, I'd just like to give my thanks to the staff here, and I want to include all the staff, the kitchen staff, the cleaners, the office staff, the premises staff, the breakfast and after school club staff who've opened throughout this whole time, and obviously all the teachers and TAs. I'd also like to thank all the parents who are key workers at this school, and because you've gone to work, the country has managed to remain as sane as it possibly can. I'm going to talk about closure of the school should there be a child with COVID-19, or what we do if we're suspecting that a child has got COVID-19. When a child presents to us at school with symptoms which are a high temperature, a new and persistent cough, and the loss of taste or smell, we have to make a decision based on the government guidelines as to whether or not this child potentially could have COVID-19. We look at the child, and sometimes we have to make the really difficult decision that yes, this child does have symptoms. And at that point, we do have to say we're going to close the bubble. We look at it on a case-by-case basis, not just an overarching thing. We've got one child in the bubble who looks unwell, so we're going to close it. We do know how difficult it is for you as parents when we say your child cannot come to school. Next term, we will continue to do the same thing. We will look on it case by case. Some parents have been finding this quite difficult because obviously they need to go to work. But at the end of the day, the thing that we have to consider is how safe is this? Is it safe for the children? Is it safe for their families? Is it safe for our staff? And is it safe for their families? And if we send the bubble home, it's better than saying we're going to send the whole school home because this child has got COVID-19. The other thing for us is we cannot disclose to you any medical evidence. It's personal and it's private, and we're not allowed to do this. So we hope that you trust us when we close the bubble, and that we will give you information when we can. You may know that we closed a bubble last week. A child was away from school, And we actually contacted you on the Sunday to say the result had returned, and yes, your children could come back to school on Monday morning. And we will do this every time as quickly and as safely as we can. We would ask you, please don't contact parents to ask them how their child is doing. Just trust the school, that the school has contact with the parent of the child who has symptoms, and they're giving you all the information that they can. We would also ask that if your child has symptoms over a weekend or of an evening, and you decided to get them tested, that you let us know, because we can't be in the position where a child's being tested, potentially is sick, and the children remain in school. I will repeat this, we are only closing bubbles to keep the children safe. As soon as we have the test result, we will let you know. We want the children at school just as much as you do. There was a comment about how can we be left for 2 weeks in this position. We've never left a bubble closed for 2 weeks. The most a bubble has been closed is 4 days. Today, every test that has taken place in our school has been negative. And if it were positive, we would send you the relevant information, which is basically you have to isolate at home for 14 days. I know this is really difficult for parents, particularly at this point if you have to work, but this is the safest thing to do.
Can I just come in there? Since this has come onto the radar of the governing body, we have been extremely alarmed on behalf of all the working parents in our community, and also from a point of view of the effectiveness of education. If you think from September onwards, we are anticipating that a bubble will be made up of 30 children in every primary context in the UK. And that means potentially, if you do the maths, during the winter months, you might expect in a school of our size, about 450 children, there might be 5 in any given week who have symptoms which could potentially be COVID symptoms. 5 times 30 plus siblings sent home is potentially 1/3 of our school community might be at home with suspected COVID symptoms in their bubble at any one time. This is massively disruptive, and as a working parent myself, I'm totally terrified by the consequences of this. So it's going to need us as working parents to be extremely flexible and to manage the expectations of our employers very carefully, because this level of disruption is clearly a marathon that is going to go on for a long, long time. The other thing that I think we can do as parents is seek reassurance from the local authority about what testing provision might be added to the current mix. You might not be aware, but at the moment the only way of testing is either the drive-through, which does provide results within 24 hours, or an online postal system, which can take up to 7 days. And bearing in mind the bubble will remain closed until the results of that test come in, so it could be 7 days if people are relying on the postal system. Only 40% of Southwark households own a car. Only 45% of Lewisham households own a car. So we can anticipate that unless the postal system gets its act together and finds a quicker turnaround, we're all going to be disrupted for as much as 7 days at a time. So the governing body this morning has written to the local authority and also to Vicky Foxcroft about this issue, seeking reassurance that something is going to be done with the testing capacity in Lewisham to ensure that there is a faster turnaround time for results. I'll keep you posted on that, but it might be that we need help from our parent community in making more noise about that. So if there's anybody listening here who is in the government or knows how to lobby on healthcare issues, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Is that all we've got to say on testing at the moment? Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so over to Dan for arrangements for the end of term in September. Sorry, Mr. Absalom.
Good afternoon. I'm going to talk a little bit about the arrangements for the end of this academic year and how we intend to return in September and the implications that lockdown could have for our children as they come back to school. The first thing is that all parents should have received by now letters and information regarding Meet the Teacher. So by the end of next week, every child in the school will have had the opportunity to meet their new teacher either virtually or on site physically. If you haven't had that letter, then you really do need to contact the office and find out, because they're scheduled for next week. We had several questions about Parents' Evening and how we would round off to finish the year with the parents and the teachers of the classes. It's been a real challenge. The original Parents' Evenings were scheduled right in the middle of lockdown, and really right now we have every teacher working full time, and I think it would be we think it would be logistically impossible to manage a Parents' Evening. If you think a single 10-minute phone call sounds simple, well it does, but if you manage that 30 times, then that could take 2 or 3 days, and we only have 7 days of the term left. As to try and compensate for that, all children will receive a written report from their teacher next week when they come in, and if you can't come in, we'll be in touch about how you pick those reports up. The next set of questions really were addressing coming back in September. A variety of things, what measures might be in place, and what the impact of lockdown could have been. In terms of measures that will be in place, next week we're going to write a letter to all parents detailing the implications of coming back to school and the restrictions that we placed on children. We do, and we continue to follow the latest guidelines from the government in all of this. In the letter, you'll find various measures for each class. These will include staggered start time using a variety of entrances, staggered break times, staggered lunch times. Children will remain in a bubble of 30 children, so it's effectively a class, and we'll have zoned play areas. For the moment, we won't be able to have communal gatherings such as assemblies and celebration assemblies and things. So that's another way of mitigating it. And as a school, we're going to play a greater emphasis on hygiene, including hand washing, etc. I think probably the biggest area of anxiety, and this is understandable for my children as well, is what impact the lockdown will be. How will the learning of our children be affected? It's impossible to tell because the last pandemic was in 1918. However, in New Zealand in 2011, there was an earthquake in Christchurch, which resulted in an extended period of school closure. In this instance, there was no remote learning at all because the infrastructure was damaged, and various studies were taking place to see what the impact that had on children. It's actually found that versus their peers in unaffected areas, the children have had virtually no impact of their time out of school. In fact, what was found in New Zealand, and sadly is true here, is that the biggest factor remains socioeconomic. So throughout this period, the school has done everything we can to try and mitigate those the socioeconomic factors. We've supported vulnerable families. We've acted as a sort of de facto food bank, delivering food weekly, and we've distributed money that was raised. When the children come into school, our first priority will be their well-being. Ms. Greenbank mentioned that in the last webinar, which you can get on the website, and there's also a really useful document on the website about how to support your child. That remains our first and foremost thing. If children are not comfortable and happy, they will not learn. We had a lot of questions about how we know what the gaps are, how we assess the children. We're going to base a curriculum on assessment and not on assumptions. We cannot assume that children have massive gaps in learning, but we do have to acknowledge that children have had a very different experience of lockdown, all children, including my own. As we go into this, what we're going to ask for is two things from you. First thing is professional trust. A teacher is in the best place to assess and identify these gaps. This is what we do. We find out what the children know, what they don't know, and then we try and teach them it. And really that is where we ask you to trust us. I'm going to ask for one other thing, which is we remain as positive as possible. The media is awash with talk of lost generations of children that are going to be permanently damaged by this. I don't think this is very helpful, nor do we. In fact, it's designed really to increase readership and sales of papers, not necessarily a reflection of the situation. So what we're going to ask is that you support us and we will support you. And that together we will ensure that children come back to school and start their learning effectively.
Great, thanks Mr. Absalom. And Miss Greenbank, you're going to cover the questions about distance learning.
Thank you for your comments, questions and feedback which have contributed towards our evaluation and reflection on our current provision for distance learning. It's helped us strive towards further improving our provision moving forwards into the next academic year. We really want the experience to be better for everybody. We completely understand that balancing work, other responsibilities and managing distance learning is a huge challenge. Many of our families have faced challenges in different ways. As you know, the school has been open since the beginning of lockdown, offering support and help to families who need it. Teachers have responded to individual families who've requested support with distance learning, and this has helped parents support their children. Many of our staff have had their own challenges too. Like many of you, they found balancing work, childcare, helping their own children with distance learning really difficult. Behind the scenes, improving effectiveness of our whole school computing system has been very, very much on our agenda. But a world pandemic that was to last an unexpected 6 months was certainly not predicted. Upgrading a school system is a really complex procedure. There are huge implications for staff training, technical issues, finance and resourcing. And it's not something that we can fix quickly or implement during a pandemic. Teachers have thought really hard about the activities they've provided for distance learning to make sure that they are as engaging as possible by focusing on the wider content of the curriculum. While the teachers are teaching in school, the remote learning that's set at home is aligned for the pupils who are still at home. We very much encourage children to be independent learners at school. Much of the learning that takes place with the teacher is assessed on an individual basis. We're very aware of interaction, the lack of interaction and opportunity to assess learning over the past months. We are planning to start the next school year slightly differently. As a result, not making any assumptions about what stage children are at. We're very excited to inform you and share with you that during the summer break, we will be upgrading our system to Microsoft 365. From September, we have plans in place to offer blended learning. This means children will receive a mixture of face-to-face teaching, electronic and media learning. We will have use of Microsoft Teams, and that will allow pupils to have their own logins, opportunities to access shared documents, save learning, access online lessons and interact with the teacher and other pupils. Should there be another local lockdown, school closure due to a rise in cases, children will have access to online learning and contact with their teacher and each other. We will be investing in new technology so that teachers will be able to teach regular computing lessons. However, this investment will be ongoing and will take much time. Our new head teacher is committed to finding solutions to improving technology. At the beginning of lockdown, we had to be really careful not to exclude those families who don't have access to devices. So we've hand-delivered paper copies for some families who are in this position. However fantastic remote learning is, we must all remember that it's never going to replace the live interactions or hands-on tasks that happen in the classroom. We listened to your request for support to understand how to teach maths concepts, and we've provided a useful booklet which is on the website. However, with interactive learning, the teacher will be able to model and demonstrate how particular strategies are taught, and this should help both parents and children understand how to manage expectations in any subject. But they will still need your help. We realise that offering remote parent workshops may help, and with new systems in place and new technology, this will be easier to manage in the event that we need them in the future. Teachers have made contact with children in their classes during the lockdown, and each phone call has been very different. Teachers have offered individual help and support where it's needed. Pupil mental health and well-being is very much a priority, and we are here to help. Teachers have been really impressed by the learning the children have sent in. This has been acknowledged by the teachers either face to face, during videos they've made, or their phone calls home. In summary, we want to acknowledge that the learning set up during the COVID crisis has been hugely compromised. We can't wait to get the children back into school to re-establish great practices for teaching and learning. And we are preparing for further disruption with better technology that will enable better interaction between home and school.
Thank you, Miss Greenbank. We're going to go now to a pre-recorded video, which we shot a few days ago of Miss Rennie, the brand new head teacher. So I'm really delighted now to introduce Anne Rennie, who is our new head teacher starting in September. Due to the extraordinary circumstances that we find ourselves in this pandemic, we asked her to come in early so that she can introduce herself, because we haven't had the normal opportunity that we would have had on the informal school gates during her handover to get to know you all and start to say hello. And I just want to say a couple of words about how we've got here and how thrilled I am about where we have arrived at. We actually started this epic journey of head teacher recruitment over 2 years ago. And when we began that process, we started by brainstorming what were the 8 top qualities of Edmund Waller that we knew we absolutely had to retain during the transition of leadership and the change of head. And then we brainstormed what are the key qualities that we wanted to find in our new head teacher. We worked those through as a governing body, and then we shared them with all the staff and asked for contributions, and the list got bigger and bigger. The most important one for me by far is the fact that we wanted to find a head teacher who already really understood the unique essence of Edmund Waller and what makes this such an incredibly special, creative environment. And I'm delighted to say we really did find that in Ms. Rennie. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about her background and how she came to choose us.
Thank you. So I'm absolutely delighted to be the next head teacher of Edmund Waller. I'm really excited about September, despite the circumstances. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I've been working in Lewisham as a teacher and as a leader for over 25 years now. I have my own children who have all attended Lewisham schools. I'm very strongly interested in the arts, particularly music, and I have a commitment to inclusion and making sure that every child receives a quality education. So why did I choose Edmund Waller? Well, first of all, I know the area. And I've had lots of contact with the school over the years, through the arts mainly. So I've seen the children at concerts, I've worked with some of your teachers, and I've really got to know the school through that vehicle. And I know that the school is very interested in the arts, as it is in all the extracurricular subjects such as PE and languages as well, and I too think these are very important qualities. I feel, as Kate has said, that I'm very much aligned with the ethos of the school. When I came for a visit, I felt that all the children were treated as individuals. There was a calmness but a buzz as well at the same time. Getting to know the school a little bit better, I realised that it's very important to the school that the children are imbued with a sense of responsibility and they take ownership of their learning and their behaviour, and they have intrinsic reward in what they do. And I really like that. I was also incredibly impressed with your wonderful outdoor space where the children can play and learn outside. My focus will be in implementing a recovery curriculum where we focus on the safety and well-being of the children, and we will use technology to help us do this. We will use technology in a creative way to promote some more blended learning for home and at school. Thank you very much for listening to me. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I'm going to draw this webinar to a close now for everyone except for the parents of new starters in reception in September, we've got a little bit more information that's specifically for you coming after this. But just to close things off, firstly, I want to repeat what Ms. Boxall said about thanking everybody in our school community for making things work as well as we possibly can over this incredibly challenging period. Also want to acknowledge what a challenging time we know this has been for lots of our families. We know that there are extreme situations going on out there, and if you are a family who is struggling to feed your children or having to cope with domestic violence or many other of the well-being problems that are going on in our world at the moment, please don't suffer in silence. Please know that the school is here for you and does want to hear from you, and the phone will be answered right up until the last day of term. There is also on the website a fantastic resource for wellbeing, which includes lots and lots of agencies and organisations who provide support, often free support, to families who are experiencing difficulty. So please use that if you need it. We want to get your feedback on this webinar, which is a completely new way of doing communication for us as a school. So there is a feedback form underneath the video link on the school website, and if you've got thoughts about what works and what didn't in this format, and generally what more can the school do to improve communication, it's an ongoing area of work for us, please do let us know. We're really keen to see your feedback. Thank you very much.
Hello again. I want to say welcome to all the new parents and all the new children who are going to start our reception classes in September. This isn't the usual way that we do things. Normally we would invite you in and we would invite your children in to meet their new teacher, to be in their classroom and meet all the children who are going to be in their class as well. But as you know, we're not allowed any additional adults or children on site, so I'm afraid we're going to have to do it this way. You should have received by now a letter that was sent to you in the post, and you should also have had the same on email. The email was sent on the 8th. If you haven't, could you please contact us and let us know, and we'll send it to you again. But you should know by now your class teacher, when to start school, part-time and then full-time. And there was a question this morning about if I have to start on the Thursday part-time, should my child also come in on the Friday and do part-time? And the answer is yes. Once you've started part-time, you carry on part-time until you've got your full-time date. There's also going to be a Zoom meeting which will take place instead of the homeschool visit, and the teacher will be letting you the time and the date for that. On the first day, we will allow you and your child to come into the playground and walk down to the classroom, and you should be able to see where your child's class is on this Zoom meeting that you have. But please, could you try not to stand and hold conversations with other parents, as friendly as you want to be. Just drop your child into class, say goodbye, and then come away, and then pick them up at lunchtime whilst they're part-time. We can't have lots of adults milling around the playground. You'll also receive a link to a video where the teacher will also introduce themselves and show the classroom to the children. Could you please show it to your child a number of times throughout the summer so they have a good idea of where they're going? If you only show it once now, they're going to forget, and it's more likely to make them anxious. So show it a number of times over the summer. If you're passing the school at any point during the summer holidays, just put your head through the gate and say, oh, this is where you're coming, this is the playground, this is where your classroom will be, and you'll be able to see the classrooms from the main Waller Road gate. So I hope you and your child are very happy and successful in this school. I hope you have a very good summer. And one last thing, if you're passing before school closes, just call in and collect your book bag. The office staff will give it to you, and your child can then arrive on their first day with their bag. Thanks very much, and we'll see you in September.
Great.
All right?
That's Wonderful. Thanks, Ms. Boxall. That's fantastic. One thing to add is exciting news, and that is if you happen to have someone in your network with a child who is looking for a place in this coming September, we do have at least one spare place right now. And hopefully you've got enough confidence in what we're offering to know that this is something that's great news for a friend if they're looking for a place. So please pass on the word. We'd be delighted to hear from them. Thank you.